As you can see, our growth continues to go upward. Damien and I noticed, and this is where the graphs are wonderful, I think, that we can still see that within the general fund, which is the darker blue, we can see how there's been so much growth from the 06, 07. And even though at this time there's still a positive, we know that we're probably going to end up even much better, just by looking at the trend. We can notice ourselves that we're going to be in a much better financial situation at the closing of 0708. Again, this is the CDS budget, just continues to grow, continues kind of leveling off in the 0809 year. And again, that's probably because we always budget conservatively. And so until we actually get those contracts in is when we allow the programs to go ahead and add it to their budget. So hopefully, as the year goes through and contracts are approved by the CDS, they'll go ahead and put those into the working budget. All combined, in the 0708 year, we always look so much better. Again, just because in the 0809, even though we might have grants that are in the works, until we actually get those award letters, or we can almost be 100% we are going to be funded, we don't put them into the budget. So you always see where the money always drops on the July budget. If you have a slightward downtrend, and then we should see it kick in back into as the year goes through, first interim and second interim.
And this is really kind of a phenomenal graph. The 0708 is high. We actually close, that number will come down a little bit because we're not going to spend everything that's in the budget. We'll get, you drop back down to an actual number. But just even on a budgetary basis, look at the growth from 06, 07, 07, 08. It's really phenomenal. Now, a lot of that 10 million or so is attributable to the high-speed network. But even when you back that out, it's just phenomenal growth at times that you really wouldn't have thought you would have had a lot of growth. So, very hard to predict, when you'll get a grant and what you won't get. As Jamie said, for example, the early reading first, you have high expectations to get it. But of course, it's not in our budget yet until we do get it. Those are the kind of events that we saw happen last year. So.
And like Dana mentioned, it is a difficult budget to adopt tonight, but we do have a 1.9 million projected deficit at this time. But I think the next graph hopefully will help alleviate some of the pain. This is how what Damon was mentioning, in the sense of how we always have come out when we budget July 1st at estimated actuals for the 0405, which is our first year that we have there. And then we ended up at unaudited actuals at a $396,000. And in the 0506, which is, I think, close to one of my first ones, I remember bringing the $1.8 million deficit, and then estimating actuals, which at this time 799, to fall to the surplus of 2.2. So again, we always budget very conservatively, and then as the year goes through, it's not to say we're not going to one year see a deficit. This might be the year, but if our trend continues, we're already projecting in the 0708, we had a 1.3, estimating right now at 668 surplus. And just by looking at that graph, we can tell, David and I saying, please, departments, look at them a little bit deeper. Where are you not really going to spend? Or as we're closing, all these shifts happen from the unrestricted dollars, and they shift them into the grant. And so therefore creating even sometimes a greater surplus. So we do ask them, and we encourage them to definitely keep what they think they're going to spend, but we also encourage them to definitely look at those and be a little bit more accurate, so our projections can be a little bit more accurate. But like David said, just looking at the graph, we can tell that we should be by far much better.
In 0405, I think if you're required the property, you're wondering why it's so lower. Even the year we spent $2 million on the property, still turned around.
So we hope that.
We have high expectations for ourselves.
And we're thinking it should be, and like Dennis says, even our cash flow is a projection of how we think we're going. I mean, it's looking really healthy and strong. should think that we should close even a little healthier than what we're projecting right now.
Or is it zero?
That's a-
Real close.
It will. And this is the breakdown of the major categories that the deficit is. This is balances, unrestricted programs of balances. These are like extra contracts that Linda has, and which we said, as what she does is until she gets the grant, she'll budget for them, because that's her worst case scenario. And then as the grants come in, she'll make those shifts into the appropriate grants. So that would be the category that's affected. Other unrestricted, which is just our general fund. And then the restricted programs, currently special ed has 205, 421. And this is an entitlement, like Damon was mentioning, that we got at the tail end, that we have the revenues, but none of the expenditures have happened, but they all have to happen in the next fiscal year.
There isn't a dollar, here's a late view of all those negative numbers. There isn't a dollar in there that we don't have in the bank to spend.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Absolutely, John.
Revenues, unrestricted and restricted revenues, again, we're approving tonight a total revenues of $76 million. Unrestricted, the breakdown by percentages by revenue limit, federal, other state, and other local revenues. So you can see just how we're composed. A lot of this particular time falls under other state revenues, which is our special ed program for there and other state grants that we might have.
And as it relates to the upcoming budget, the area that really is in jeopardy would be that other state revenue category for most districts, which would be a significant concern to us, except that special ed is being protected under almost all budget proposals now. And that's the big bulk of those funds. Federal is not subject to any of the state problems or special issues. And the revenue limit, though, is also being protected. And the contracts, of course, are subject to negotiations with the local districts in terms of what to pay. But rarely, they don't get a 10% cut. Local contract is just a state tax. You might agree to that, but it doesn't necessarily happen. So by having such a well-diversified budget, we are somewhat insulated in the fact that whenever major budget occurrences happen, it's only going to happen part of us, not the budget amounts. So there will always be something happening to us, it just never will be severe.
You keep knocking on it.
You never know with the state budget.
Unrestricted revenues, again, this only comprises of 8.05% of total revenues. And these are what we call our revenue limit dollars. Total expenditures, restricted and unrestricted, are totaling for the budget year $78 million, broken down by categories. And the components are certificated salaries, 17%, classified salaries, 22%, employee benefits at 13%. Books and supplies, again, a very small budget for us, only 3.59%, which is probably mainly in our programs such as alternative ed, special ed. Those are the ones that mainly use books and supplies. A big portion is, of course, 33.82% for our contracts, and capital outlay and other outgo being the other. Again, even though this is salaries and benefits are 53%, we rank very low compared to the other school districts. Their salaries and benefits probably more in the range of probably 80%. And so comparably, we are a lot less when we compare salaries and benefits combined.
Doesn't mean we pay less, we spend money very differently.
Because they wouldn't have as many under the other contracts and services like we do.
For example, I have a contract with Scenic for how many $1 million now? Not too many difference, got $14 million contract with vendors. So that ups our services and contract. So this creates a disproportionate on a percentage basis analysis. So we don't really have anybody good in comparison. We're pretty unique in the state. I mean, we can't even really compare to other county offices. We behave as a much larger county office than we are in terms of EDA. Our budget is much, much larger. There are county offices in Alameda, which are 200,000+ students, John, and their budget is $30 million.